Jacob, you're probably the most notorious of the panel here, just because of the
regalia
uniform that you wore on January 6th. Why don't you go ahead and outline a little bit of your experience? My
experience was a day of unity, peace, and love. And when I made my way down to the Capitol building, in my experience, everything was fine until the police started shooting concussion grenades, tear gas, and rubber bullets into the crowd. That's when all hell broke loose. That was when the riot started, okay? So if the police were shooting tear gas at the barricades to push people back from the barricades, that would make sense. But they were shooting it into the middle of a peaceful crowd. So people are going to move forward
to get away,
to get away from the tear gas. I don't know. I mean, you're a Marine. You know tear gas sucks.
Yeah,
it is your instinct to move away from it, you know? So that was when all hell broke loose. I saw people breaking in the windows and stuff on the Senate side. I went in, they went in, they kicked the doors open, and then I saw everybody pouring in. And I'm like, oh my God, you know, this is our sacred building here. We can't have violence and vandalism and theft inside this sacred chamber. So I went inside to stop vandalism, violence, and theft. And that's exactly what I did. There's plenty of video evidence to prove that. Within 30 seconds of being in the building, I actually stopped somebody from stealing. Now, it's just muffins from a break room, but it's a principle of the matter. I did stop somebody from stealing. That was my intention when I went in the building. I also volunteered to help the police when I saw there were people in the Senate. That's why they were escorting me around the building. And I also, when I got out of the building, I was the one that played Donald Trump's tweet on my megaphone and stood in front of an angry mob trying to break into the Capitol and told everybody to go home. So there was a lot of distortion in the Mockingbird media's narrative. They chose to use me as their poster boy because my image created the illusion that the violence and the chaos that took place outside the building also took place inside, even though it didn't. You see, so it created that psyop illusion. And in that regard, what's really funny is they tried to say that when they went after me, that it was because, you know, I was dangerous or a flight risk or whatever. And then they tried to say there was no bias in their approach to this. But when I asked for my regalia back when I got out, the government didn't want to give it back because they said that the regalia, the horns, the face paint, the staff, my presence there was a quote unquote sign of strength on January 6th. And so now it makes...
Shit, you can borrow mine.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, now it all makes sense. Why they kept me in solitary, why they made me an example, why they gave me a 41-month sentence, why they put the sentencing enhancements that are unconstitutional, why, just all of it makes so much sense.
How long were you in solitary?
10.5 months.
Over the entire time?
Well, kind of. They transferred me over to Colorado for a psych eval. And what's really crazy about that, and this just goes to show that when you ask a lawyer to represent you, make sure they are going to represent you. Because when I got back from Colorado after my psych eval, my lawyer had lied to the media and told everybody that I was schizophrenic, bipolar, depressed, and delusional. None of which was in my psych eval. So, I mean, this is, and coming back full circle, this is why we need real representatives in the Congress. Because most of our congressmen, guess what? They're lawyers.
Yeah. Stuart, why don't you go ahead and take a minute to talk about what your experience was like?
Yeah, so I went to January 6th to cover it as a journalist. I was there with the media group I'm a part of called Murder in the Media, which is why we doodled that on the door, which was a big spicy moment, and then had the somewhat famous photograph of me smoking
that word does tend to get people a little nervy, right? Especially Congress people.
It's a sarcastic name for a funny media group. We do more comedy than news. You know, we're a Telegram bunch, and we were out there covering the Trump rally before, and the footage wasn't great. There wasn't that much going on. So when things started to happen, and what you touched on is very true. There were two January 6th. There's inside the building and outside the building. And none of it would have happened if those cops did not go completely hard on a group of people who were not expecting it and not used to it. Like, this is not BLM out there. This is angry dads. And I mean, I heard the people say, "Hey, I thought you were on our side." Well, they learned today that they weren't. But that's what set this thing off. And
a lot of grandmas too.
Yeah, a lot of exactly. When as a man, when you see these grandmothers being maced and tear gassed and flashbanged, there's a certain reaction in your heart.
Yeah, push them down and run over them as
that's
they
when
leave.
The crowd shifted.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. So, and then as soon as people were inside, which wasn't too difficult apparently, the mood was jovial. It was people were walking around inside the lines. When you see that video, people orderly, that's an accurate representation of what was in there. People go in, and it was more of a, well, damn, we're here. What now?
Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon, so subscribe and come hang out.